This is the Let's Talk About It podcast.
Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Let's Talk About It podcast. If you are new with us, we drop a brand new episode every first and third Friday of the month, and I have my wonderful wife with me, as always. What's going on, Mia Moore?
I forget that you do that. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon.
I actually haven't done it in a long time. It's been
I know
a while.
that's probably because I've been opening, and I always go, "What's up, everybody?"
Ain't nothing wrong with that. You got your intro, I got mine.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and share this now. Listen, if you guys are enjoying the show, enjoying this on YouTube or Apple or Spotify, however it is that you are tuning in, please do us a favor. Go ahead and not just like it, but comment on it, share, please. That's actually the greatest gift you can do is that you can share it and leave a, what do they call it? A
Comment?
No, not a comment. I already said comment. What's the other thing we're talking about? Review. Leave us a 5-star review. Don't do 4 or 3. Come on. Give us 5, fam. Give us a 5-star review. Please let us know how much you guys are enjoying this. And we would love to hear from you guys. If there's any type of topics or questions that you guys have, we would love to hear from you. With all that being said, Mia Moore, how are you?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
How did you know that?
Because you always ask me that.
Well, I'm asking.
Oh, I'm tired.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
It's so funny, like, right before when you were praying, I closed my eyes and I was like, Lord, I'm tired. I'm tired.
Well, ironically, we're going to talk about one of our favorite topics, which is rest. And ironically, so here's a fun fact. You ready? Mm-hmm. Pretty much almost a year ago to the date, we released a specific episode. And it's honestly, to this day, one of my favorite episodes. I actually re-listened to it again. But it was called Halftime by yours truly, Juby Lila Benson. You had a phenomenal idea. You had watched it was actually a documentary called Halftime featuring Jennifer Lopez. And by the way, seriously, go back and listen to it because I think it actually kind of ties into this. So I'm kind of calling this like our sequel maybe to Halftime. But I kind of want you.
But if it's better, then it's a prequel. If this one ends up being better, then this is the prequel.
I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah.
Sequels advance the story. Prequels is a setup before.
Nah.
So I think it's kind of I don't know if it's so much if it's better as does it advance or is it the setup? So we'll have to find out and see. But all that being said, I kind of just want you to kind of give a quick recap. What was the purpose of Halftime? Like just to kind of bring our audience back in for those who are just joining us or even people that have heard it before. But what was the purpose of Halftime?
Yeah. So for me, Halftime started in college. And just watching that documentary just kind of reminded me, even though it really didn't have anything to do with what we talked about, it's just the title. It just reminded me. But essentially, Halftime is, if you were into any form of sport, every team has a halftime. Essentially,
or game.
Yeah. Every game. Sorry, not every team.
No, you're good.
Every game has a halftime. Essentially, what that means is the team that's playing, both sides of the team, they go to the back and they kind of take this time to go over everything that's already happened and anticipate what's to come. And I remember the whole challenge was like, hey, the first half of the year is already over. So you can take this as your halftime to just kind of review, like, hey, what happened in 1 month to 6 that I loved, that I didn't care for, what could I have changed, what could challenge me more, and what can I anticipate for months 7 to 12. Mm-hmm. But the other side of halftime is that if you've ever gone to a game, there's always a halftime show, right? And there's going to be people who are going to be distracted by the halftime show. For us, it's entertainment, right? But the team doesn't stand out there and watch the halftime show. They go off to seclusion. I guess is the word seclusion. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They go to their locker room and they focus on what has happened and what is to come. Whereas we will sit on the sidelines and be like, oh, did you see that dance move? So there's like these two different options. Like, hey, do you want to be the person that goes off into takes a little bit of a timeout, goes to the back and reviews the play of 2023? Or do you want to be the person that's just like, well, let the chips fall where it may kind of thing. So yeah, that was the whole concept behind Halftime.
Yeah. So the reason why it's one of my favorite episodes, like you did a great job, not just talking through it, but you used a perfect analogy of, like you said, we have two options. You know, we can either leisurely let life just pass us by and be entertained, and it's almost kind of like, you know, you can binge something, you know, or you can just say yes to every single thing that you're invited to. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we're saying yes to every single thing because we want an escape, or we're saying yes to something because we're intentionally hanging out with people that give us life, or are we intentionally doing things that are filling us back up. So the reason why I kind of want you to recap halftime, because I think this ties into our subject today, which is rest. And I think what you were talking about is also during halftime, you're not just reviewing plays and thinking on how can I improve and what can I do better, but you're also getting rest. You know, it's actually, it's a moment for your body to physically, in every single way, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, to catch up with itself, so that you can go back out into the game. So when you think of just, I guess, I don't want to call it the game of life, but in life, what does it look like for us to rest well? So as we kind of, to kick us off into this subject, how would you say you have grown from that time, from halftime of last year, so July of last year, to just the end of the year? So from July to December.
Yeah.
And then same question from January to now.
Yeah. It's funny you should ask that, because couple of weekends ago, I met a new cousin, but we've obviously met before. Like, I just don't remember her. But we were talking, and she was just kind of sharing some health concerns that she had in 2 years or a year ago. And, you know, she had cancer. She's in remission now. And we were just kind of talking about where we're in life right now, you know. And I remember, like, looking at her and telling her, and I said, you know, I'm at a point in my life where I'm not going to let someone make me feel bad for taking time in this life and enjoying it. Like, I am not moved by other people's pace at this point. And I'm not going to let someone make me feel bad for, like, taking the pace that I take, you know? So I would say that's, like, the biggest thing, is I've slowed down a lot more, but I feel more effective, I guess.
When you say slow down, what specifically is coming to mind? How have you slowed down? What have you done to kind of help do that and just live a little more on the, I guess, on the chill side?
Yeah. My entire schedule is not committed to anything and everything. It's committed to the things I want it to be committed to. I am okay with saying no more. Just being like, like, it's going to sound selfish, but, like, hang with me, you know. I'm just like, that doesn't really serve me right now, you know. And it could be good things too. Like, it could be like, hey, do you want to lead this small group? Not really.
Yeah.
It's not a passion point. It's really not doing much for me. But at the same time, we've said yes to certain things, you know. We've said, like, you know, I got a chance to co-lead a women's group, a leadership group for young adults. And, like, the minute it was mentioned to me, like, I got so excited and I lit up and I was like, absolutely. Like, I would literally be a fly on the wall and sit through that, you know. Same thing with, like, the small groups thing that we've committed to, you know. So I say yes to the things I want to say yes to, and I feel like I'm capable of doing. And I think being in ministry, it is the worst, because we're, like, constantly going. Like, it's pretty bad. So to get to a point where it's just like, I'm okay, but thank you, you know.
How has rest and operating from a posture of rest empowered you to say yes, which you want to say yes to, and equally say no, which you have to say no to? And here's why I'm asking this. There's probably people who are joining this, listening to us, watching this thing going, how do I have that? How do I have that peace? How do I have that, I guess, that assurance of, like, well, I want to say yes to these things, I want to say no to these things, but how has rest helped shape that for you? Because I feel like a lot of that is centered around there, because you said you move more slow. So though you say no to things, you equally say yes to some other things. So how has rest help you to say yes what you need to say yes to, and no what you need to say no to?
Well, first of all, I was going to say it is a muscle you have to practice. So one of the things that I, like, still have to do, and this really has nothing to do with talking about, but just talking about exercising a muscle that you're not used to exercising. I like, I'll have a conversation with someone, and I am infamous, like, once the conversation's over, for overthinking that conversation, right? And I'll be, like, taking a shower, I'll be at the gym, and I was like, oh my gosh, should I have said that? And then I'll pick up my phone and I'll send this really long apology, right? And I'm just like, hey, I'm so sorry. I hope you know what I meant by da da da. Like, I hope you understand my heart, you know. And like, I did it so much. One of the things that I've now started doing is when I have that moment, like I had one today where my counselor asked me something and I thought I did a good job of explaining it. But then like later when I was getting ready, I was like, oh no, did I like totally like misrepresent what I was trying to say? So I was just like, okay, as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to send her an email. But like, hey, I hope you, and I was like, no, like it is okay. If she wanted clarity, she would have asked for it. And if she misunderstood you, then it is what it is. Like you said what you needed to say and it made sense to you. So I think that's the same thing also when it comes to saying yes and no. Like there's going to be times you say no, you know, like, and you feel the need to explain why you said no, you know, and just being like, and you have to get to a point where you're just like, I don't have to explain it. I'm previously committed. I'm committed to my couch this weekend, you know?
Yeah.
They don't have to know that, but I'm committed.
Yeah.
You know? So I think like, I know that when you add rest into that, you are thinking more with clarity. You know, like this past weekend, we've kind of been going, it's all been good stuff, right? Like we've been going. Our schedule's kind of off, like our sleep schedule's off. So right now I am tired. So I am thinking more from an emotional standpoint and not more so much clarified, rested point of view. So when you add emotions into like an already like tough situation or a tough yes or a tough no, it just heightens it even more than it needs to be. But when you're coming from a place of rest where you've given your brain that time off and you're like, hey, pros and cons, but at the end of the day, what's going to serve everyone that's around me and myself like better?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because, you know, today was, you know, we had Monday and Tuesday off with the 4th of July and everything. And so, you know,
Praise the
Wednesday,
Lord.
I know, that was awesome. So Wednesday coming back into the office, initially I was going to meet with someone on Wednesday. And I decided, you know, granted, we said like, hey, it's in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So we didn't say it was going to be this Wednesday, but we said 1 to 2 weeks. But I was looking at wanting to do it on Wednesday. And needless to say, when Monday and Tuesday came around, I decided I'm not going to meet with this person on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And what helped me to say no to meeting with them on Wednesday and yes to let me just focus on me and just task and everything. Going back to what you said, it was a long, busy weekend for us, both professionally and personally. What's helped me to say yes when I need to say yes to and no to what I need to say no to is I ask myself am I going to be able to give this person my best?
Yeah.
And the answer for me was no. Now, granted, I could have pushed through, and there's gonna be times when we need to do that. There's gonna be times when we need to push through, and it is what it is. You know, there's that season of life where there's only so many hours in a day, or that we just depending on how the schedule falls. I understand that, but if I have control over it, a question I've learned to ask myself is, will I be able to give this person my best self? Not just time-wise, energy-wise, attention-wise, focus-wise. And rest is a contributing factor with that. So because I knew I was kind of coming out of, I'm probably at 70, 80% right now with me. That helped me to say, no, hey, what about the week after? And which we are, you know, so now we're meeting next Thursday.
A great question. Oh, is it who I think it is?
I don't know. Who is it?
Martinez?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay. I think, sorry, side note. But I think a great question to ask is, if I say yes to this, what version of me is going to show up?
Ooh.
Like, and
that's really good.
And there's going to be weeks where things are going to be unplanned. Like, I didn't expect to be as tired as I was. I don't know why. Like, I knew exactly what was on my, like, I knew exactly what was on my calendar.
Which is why I was surprised you said yes to some of the things you said yes to. So I was like, what do you mean what do you mean you're surprised?
No. Like, I'm surprised in a sense that, like, I had mentally prepared for what was on my calendar.
But
Like,
overestimated the backside of how you were going to feel.
right. So, and I wasn't in my own space. So, you know, I already don't sleep well when I'm not in my own space. So I didn't contribute those things. So when I did like get to yesterday, I was like, the heck? Like, I knew exactly what I was stepping into, but why do I feel so tired? But it's because I also didn't plan for other parts. So for the most part, you already know what version of you is going to show up. Oh, sorry. But I think that's just a really good leading question to ask. It's just like, man, if I say yes to that, what version of me is going to show up, given what like the information that I already have by looking at my calendar and looking at my mental well-being. Like, if somebody asked me to meet with them today, it would have been an automatic no for me. The only person that got to meet with me today is my counselor. And because the days that I meet with her, like, it's already mentally exhausting for me, you know, because we do a lot of digging work and it is just exhausting. And so now not only am I mentally exhausted, I am already physically exhausted. So for me to say yes to someone, just wouldn't be the best. So like even today, like we don't have like our young adults thing, you know, which I'm so thankful for. Like I was like, oh, okay, great. Like we're not meeting tonight. But I mean, yes, I would have showed up and, you know, pushed through like you said, but it would not have been the best version of me.
Well, and as you're talking, it's a reminder too that we're going to be exhausted at the end of the day, period, you know, or at the end of the week, whatever it is, or that season of life. So you're going to be tired. We can't avoid that, but there's a difference between good tired and bad tired, you know? And so what I'm hearing from you is it's not that you don't like serving within that specific small group as a leader. It's, hey, right now, because of the energy that you just, and the time that kind of just came out of, I'm looking forward to doing it next weekend. I'll be in a better headspace, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So I just want to remind everybody, like, just because you want to break from something that you enjoy, that doesn't mean that you don't enjoy that thing. It just means, like, I mean, for example, like growing up, you know, I was a gamer, and there were times I was so tired, I literally didn't care about gaming. Yeah. Like I just wanted to put on a movie instead.
It's like when you're so tired, it's like, do I sleep or do I eat?
Right. Right. You know, so just know, like, it's okay to be, you know, you're going to be tired regardless, but are we going to be tired for the right reasons? Maybe that's another filter question to ask us is me doing this, like, hey, we're going to be tired, but am I going to be tired for the right reasons? Or am I going to be tired am I giving into peer pressure? Am I giving into something that doesn't really give me joy? Yeah. You know, maybe that's another great question to ask.
Like going to the gym tires me out, but it's for all the right reasons.
That's a great example. Yeah.
You know, like I'm out, like those 45 minutes to an hour is strictly for me to work out whatever I need to work out. Yeah. Any aggression, any frustration, you know, whatever, you know. But like I already know, like I'll go in there and be like, oh man, I got this. Like what? It's only like a 45-minute workout. I can do it. And then like 5 minutes in and I'm like, deeply underestimated that one. Yeah. But I'm going to stick with it because I know when I'm tired at the end, it's all for the right reasons.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. What would you say are scriptures, maybe biblical stories, but what are verses or things that have helped you to implement rest?
Well, there is the commandment.
Okay, so Exodus 20.
I believe it's mentioned twice on Sabbath. Is that one that's mentioned twice?
What do you mean is it mentioned twice?
Sabbath. Like resting.
Talking about there's the 10 Commandments where, he just mentions it one time in the 10 Commandments.
Okay, there's one in what's the thing that's mentioned twice in the 10 Commandments?
I'm not tracking that there is, but you know what? Let's just go ahead and look at the Bible. But go ahead, keep talking.
There's a commandment that's, like they do a remix, and it's the same thing.
Okay, well go ahead. Keep talking. I'll look it up.
Yeah, so there is the commandment, and anytime I hear someone says, I'll rest when I die, or like I'll rest when I'm old or retired, whatever, to me, they're saying like the God of this perfect, like the perfect God, right? Like he thought he needed a day off after making everything very good. Mm-hmm. Like he created things that were tov, which essentially means good. Like anytime he says it is good, once he's created something, translated, it means tov, you know? So for him, he's made all these tov things, and he's all like, man, this is so good. I'm going to take a day off. I'm going to chill. I'm going to relax. But here's me, you know, little old human. It's just like, nah. I'm going to outdo God and just rest when I die. Like, so you're saying like what Christ did not wasn't enough. So I have to outdo what he did. So that's like a reality that I always like keep in the back of my mind. And even the fact that Christ himself always went away to a place of rest and solitude before he was about to do something great or after he did something great.
Yeah.
You know, so if the God of this universe needs time off, I definitely need time off.
It's funny because, you know, I knew we were going to talk about rest, but to me, rest is highly connected to solitude. And so to answer your first, because you said twice, so I just got the scripture, the 10 Commandments right here. So Exodus 20, starting in verse 3. So the first one is, you must not have any other God before me. The second one is, you must not make for yourself an idol of any kind or image of anything in the heavens or the earth. The third one is, you must not misuse the name of the Lord your God. The fourth one is, remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days of the week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath day. And it just goes on to say, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them, but on the seventh day he rested. So the first 4 is all about how to love the Lord. And then 5 through 10 is about how to love people.
Yeah.
So.
And can I just say, like, your Sabbath doesn't have to be Saturday. You know? Like,
stepping on toes right now.
There are people who cannot take Saturdays off. There are people, like, I mean, if you need to go to Sam's Club or you need to go shopping on the weekend, there are people that needs to be available to check you out, to give you your meat or whatever it is that you're purchasing. So those people can't take Saturday off. So are they being dishonoring of what God said?
Yeah, that's good.
Or are they just taking a day of the 7 days?
Right.
And using that to refuel. So I think there's this big, major misconception that Sabbath has to happen on Saturdays. And that's not true.
Yeah.
As someone who has worked retail and rarely ever got weekends off, like, you take whatever day you can to refuel yourself, you know? So don't put God in a box of he can only work on Saturday.
Yeah. One of the other things that you mentioned, though, when you said that even Jesus had to do it, so I wanted to read this because I'd written this out in my prayer journal. But it says, basically, it's just, I did an in-depth study probably about, 2 years ago, because I have it dated right here, August of 2021, so almost 2 years ago. And I basically just went through all the different ways of the times that Jesus went to pray. And so there were 3 instances when he went to pray alone, particularly, for that posture of solitude. So Matthew 14, verse 23, after feeding the 5,000, which really was probably closer to 15,000 because it said 5,000 men, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. Mark chapter 1, verse 35, early in the morning, while still dark, Jesus went to a desolate place. Other versions say secluded, solitary, isolated, deserted place. And this is after he cast out the demons. In Luke 22, verse 39, Garden of Gethsemane, as well as Matthew 22, Garden of Gethsemane, before he goes to the cross. Jesus goes away alone. But bottom line, he's constantly so think about this, even the night before the crucifixion, that is the worst amount of pain and excruciating death he's about to endure. So what does he do? He goes alone. He goes away to a place of solitude, of isolation, to find rest in the Lord. If you're about to go through, so consider the possibility that if you are in a tough season or you're about to go into a tough season, can you really afford to not slow down and rest?
Right. Can
you really afford to not go into a secluded place, a solitary place?
Does your output have enough energy for what you're about to endure?
Yes. And again, even going back to how Jesus fed the 5,000, as soon as the more work you do means the more rest you need. And I love that, it's language like, after he fed the 5,000, it's probably later on in the day. The next one in Mark 1:35, after he cast out the demons, it's early in the morning. And another one is, it's Garden of Gethsemane. It's like in the middle of the morning, basically, or / middle of the night type
like
thing.
3, 4 a.m.
Right.
Yeah.
So all that being said, the beauty is the posture of rest, aside from it just being a 24-hour period in terms of honoring the Sabbath, to your point, in addition to that, it can be any time of the day. Like some of us think that, I didn't do it first thing in the morning, so I missed it. No, you didn't. Like you could do it. Did you do it during your lunch break?
Yeah.
You can take a 10-minute walk or something like that around your parking lot just to detach your mind and get plugged into the Lord. Did you do it when you came back home for a little bit? I got to say hi to your family. If you want to watch something or something, that's fine. But this idea of resting is highly tied to solitude and going away to secluded, desolate, solitary spaces. And it's not the place itself that makes it sacred or holy. It's the Holy Spirit that's in us. But pay attention to the things or places in which that helps you to calm your mind. We have a chair in the corner in our master, and I'm learning, like, when I sit there, I'm like, oh, it kind of just puts me in this calm spot.
That's why I bought it.
Good job, babe.
Thank you.
The guest bedroom, I don't feel that in there. I don't know why, I just don't. When I'm here in the living room.
It's on purpose, so they don't stay too long.
I don't know about all that. But it just doesn't feel that way for me, though, So all that being said, like, pay attention to how your mind feels, how your inner person feels, how your body feels when you sit down. If you feel like, man, this feels nice and comfortable, that might be a place for you to reconnect with the Lord so that you can find that rest with Him.
Yeah.
But
I was gonna say, like, after this is over, I plan to completely just chill out for the rest of the night, because like today has been a go day. Like, one, because I kept thinking today was Monday, and I'm just like,
Did feel like that.
Yeah. So like I'm doing one thing after the other, and it wasn't until about an hour and a half ago that I just actually got to like really sit down.
Yeah.
So because of that, I've already made up in my mind. I'm like, I'm not gonna apologize for taking the rest of the afternoon off, or evening rather. Now it's already officially evening, but I'm not gonna apologize for it. I'm not gonna apologize for taking time for myself and taking care of my soul. Because we have dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of us are starving.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that need to be taken care of are taken care of.
Yeah. You said something I want to elaborate on that. I so appreciate you saying you're not going to feel guilty for taking time off and feeding and, basically pouring back into my soul. Can we just set like our friends and our listeners free from that?
Yeah.
Because I feel like maybe you right now are in a season where you're learning to say no, or maybe you haven't yet, but you're learning the ability. As you said, you're developing this muscle, and you feel like you can't because you feel like you're going to disappoint people. And I just want to affirm that tension, that struggle, and also tell you, you might disappoint some people, but be okay with it because it's not worth it at the expense of your soul. The specific verses escape me. I think it's in Mark when Jesus says, what good is it for a man or woman to gain the whole world
And lose their
but
soul.
to lose their soul? That could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
What good is it for us to be a part of a fast growing church but I lose my soul in the process? What good is it for me to be at every single event that my friends have invited me to, but I lose my soul in the process? So I just want to affirm, if you're in that season where you're learning to build that muscle and you're struggling with it, that's okay. But the Lord does not move in guilt. You need to know that. The Lord does not move. He will not guilt you into something. Now, He will convict you, and He will use it to turn you back to Him. But I just want to, encourage people who are listening, because they might be struggling with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard, especially if you're a recovering people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really hard to be like, why would I want to take time off for myself? Like, that's selfish. And I think taking care of yourself and your soul is the best thing you can actually, it is the most unselfish thing you can actually do. Because again, which version of you is going to show up if you said yes in your most tired and vulnerable state? And if it's not the best version of you, or even like a decent version of you that's showing up, then you're not doing anyone any favors. And that is a selfish thing to do, just to show up.
Yeah.
Just to take space.
That's good. I was reminded of another story. We've talked about God the Father being our example of rest. We've talked about Jesus being an example, as if you can't get better than those two. But I was also thinking about the Apostle Paul. and it was in Galatians 1. And Galatians 1 starting in verse 15. But the context, when you read Paul's conversion through Acts, it almost comes across as he had this encounter, with resurrected Christ, and immediately after he's preaching the next day, right? But through Galatians, it says, I'll start in verse 13. You know what I was like when I followed the Jewish religion, how I violently persecuted God's church. I did my best to destroy it. I was far ahead of my fellow Jews in my zeal for the traditions of my ancestors. It's almost like Paul's going like, I was the best one.
Yeah.
Like he's bragging on his sin, basically.
I know he's like low-key like, I hate to say it, but I really was the best of the best.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's just talking about basically how really what he's really saying is how messed up I was,
Sure.
Even before I was born, God chose me and called me by his marvelous grace. Then it pleased him to reveal his son to me so that I would proclaim the good news about Jesus to the Gentiles. When this happened, in verse 16, I did not rush out to consult with any human being. Verse 17, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to consult with those who were apostles before I was. Instead, I went away into Arabia. And later, I returned to the city of Damascus. You ready? Verse 18, 3 years later.
Yeah.
3 years. Like, you read it through Acts, it's like the next day is what it comes across as. Galatians, he's like 3 years later. I went to Jerusalem.
SpongeBob. 3 years later.
Yeah, right. 3 years later.
But you know what, though? Also, I think Paul was able to wait because as you were reading it, I've never picked this up before. Like, it can come across bragging, but Paul knew who he was, man.
Right.
Because he knew his identity, rest was okay. When you don't know, it all comes down to identity. I feel like all of my conversation in the last couple of months have come down to identity. When you don't know who you are, you will say yes to everything and you will exhaust yourself trying to be everything to all people. And you cannot. When you know who you are in Christ, you are going to be okay with saying great opportunity, but not for me, because that's not what Christ has called me to. Not every good opportunity has to be yes, because it's not what God is calling you to. Like, if someone came up to me right now and said hey, I want you to take over our church, and which would never happen because I'm a woman. End of the conversation. But if they, thank you, but that's a great opportunity. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. To lead a church and lead them through the gospel and living that life. But that is not what God has called me to right now in this season. Or heck, I don't know if that's something he's called me to 20, 30 years from now. So just because it's a
good thing or a great thing doesn't mean it's a God thing.
Right. And knowing how he has created you and what passions he's given you, what giftings he's given you will help you with your yes and your no.
Yeah. Well, and even when I think through the life of Paul, think about this for context, babe. Knowing his background, this man would have had memorized the first 5 books of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And so for a man of his stature, this dude was there when Stephen was getting stoned in the book of Acts. So for this man to
because it was the next chapter, his conversion happens.
Right.
But
so
we don't know if that's a year or 2 year.
Correct. We don't know the timeline that takes place. But my point is this stature and his intellect and his knowledge was already there. But even after he had this encounter with resurrected Christ, he's like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Here's a man who, let's modernize it. Here's a dude who basically had his
wisdom
PhD.
Right there, man.
This dude had his PhD/doctorate in the OT and goes, I don't know nothing. I'm going to go ahead and get my bootleg MDiv. Just chill.
Yeah.
I'm going to rest for 3. Imagine if we just had 3 years to just go all in with the Lord. It's less about the fact that he spent 3 years, and it's more about the fact he spent time. He's resting.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet this is an opinion. This isn't thus saith the Lord. This isn't the Bible says, the Holy Spirit says. I don't know if Paul would have been able to write half of the books of our New Testament had he not done that.
Yeah.
Imagine what we would have missed out on had Paul not just spent 3 years of just resting. He just spent time in it. Imagine what you would learn. Imagine what you would learn about God if you just spent time with him intentionally. And he didn't. I love it. It says, I did not rush out to consult with any human being.
Yeah.
I just chilled
Yeah.
to be with the Lord, because here's what going back to, not only did Paul know who he was, he equally knew who he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And because he had this revelation of going, I don't know anything. I know this part, but I don't know that part. I need to just be with the Lord.
Yeah.
Like that's just mine. But this is Paul.
Yeah.
Like
Paul.
like the greatest apostle for many of us,
Yeah.
you know? And I just appreciate his, as prideful as he was, as soon as the Lord got a hold of his life, he equally humbled himself quickly and goes, I need to just be. And so what does it look like for you to do the same? What does it look like for us? Whether it's, I got it, you got 3 years. You have 3 minutes. Like, can you take a day? Can you take 5 minutes, 2 minutes just to stop and be still and know that the Lord is with you? At the end, if Jesus is your example to go, well, Jesus worked and he did X, Y, Z, then go all the way. Because as much as Jesus worked his butt off, he equally rested his tail off. And so rest is highly tied to solitude. What do you need to cut out in your life right now? Some of you are going, I can't afford to do that. To which I would argue, you probably can't afford not to.
Yeah. It is more dangerous not to.
Yeah. And to your point earlier, for you to say, like, I have to be on all the time, what you're saying is you can do a better job than God.
Yeah.
Just say it. Just say, God, I can do a better job than you. That's not what you're saying, but you're saying it with your actions. Is as if you can do a better job with your 7 days a week than God can do with your 6.
Yeah. And
it's just so out of order. And it's interesting how we don't look at it as breaking a commandment.
Yeah.
Like, especially as a vocational ministry, like serving in a church and everything. Mm-hmm. I would say it straight up, resting or not resting is the number one commandment that's broken by Christians.
100%.
But we don't look at it that way.
100%.
We look at it as,
we're going
I'm doing
hardcore for
I'm,
Jesus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like,
look
this
how hard
is
I
not
am. Like,
good.
I work 16 hours out of the day, 7 days a week. Like, look how much I love Jesus. Actually, no, you don't, because you can't even do a simple commandment that he gave you.
Right. There's 10 things I actually want to share. This is from John Mark Comer. So I take no credit for this. Go and get his book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. If you have not read it, I promise you, this has been a life-changing book for me. It really has been. But it's in chapter 2 or chapter 3, but he calls it 10 symptoms to a hurried, sick life. So here's how you know if you need rest. Here's how you know. Think of this as your mental / spiritual checklist on if you know that you need rest. All right. So if I read any of these, just ask yourself, where am I in this? So number 1, irritability. Like, look at those, how you treat those close to you. Are you trying to pull a Havana White over there?
Yeah. Is he going to put it on the screen, right?
You know what? That's a good idea. I will do that. For those of you guys who are watching, listening, she held her hand up like she's a Vanna White.
She's a Vanna White.
Vanna White.
Yeah, okay.
Number 2, hypersensitivity, meaning you're just easily offended. Like, you're offended at anything and what anyone does or says.
Oh, I lived there.
So, well, you might be tired.
No, I'm saying I used to I guess I should. I used to live there.
There you go. That's a better way.
I have paid rent there for many years.
Number 3, restlessness, meaning you just hate Sabbath. The idea of rest, not even just 24 hours off, even just to take an hour or 2 off.
So when I think of restlessness, I think of busy work.
Yeah, that's what it is.
You know,
Truly.
and it's not so much I hate Sabbath. It's just I literally need to just move all the time.
Right.
You know?
But that's restlessness. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Which leads into point number 4, workaholism. Yeah. You're hyped up on the drug of dopamine from working. That's why it's called workaholism. You know? Number 5, this one's pretty bad. Emotional numbness. Another way to say it is you've lost the ability to empathize. Someone shares something with you that's hard, my mom's in the hospital. So-and-so passed away. Oh, sorry.
Or
that's people's response sometimes.
You think it's all like, that's what we're asking prayers for? Okay.
Yeah. So you just have not sympathize, empathize. Empathize will always move you into action. Maybe we should do a podcast on that one day. I love that topic of empathy. But yeah, emotional numbness, you've lost the ability to empathize. Number 6, out of order priorities. Life is reactive instead of proactive. Another way of saying it is life is happening to you instead of you leading it. Number 7, lack of care for your body. So you lack sleep. You lack exercise. You get sick multiple times a year. Maybe you get a lot of headaches or something like that. But there's just lack of care for your body.
You ain't got to talk about my story, though.
Number 8, I'm purposely ignoring you. Escapist behavior. So things such as binging, we overeat, we overdrink, social media browsing, sports consumption. And here's the thing. Those in and of itself, outside of overeating, overdrinking, those in and of itself is actually not bad. You know, it's not bad to binge a show if you like, obviously there's nothing wrong with social media when you use it appropriately. But when that's the go-to, when that's the thing
when it becomes
to veg you
inappropriate,
out.
Uncle Mark.
Yes, exactly. And we will not tell that story right now. But yeah, number 8 is escapist behavior. Number 9, and this is typically the first one to go, slippage of spiritual disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you can
100%.
tell someone's exhausted, the first thing to go, to include me,
Mm-hmm.
typically the first thing to go are my spiritual disciplines.
Oh.
So you stop reading your Bible, you stop having personal time with the Lord, you stop going to church, you stop belonging to a church by going to small groups. So when I pay attention to people, like once you have rapport and relationships with them, when I don't see them at church for a couple weeks, like 1 week, got it.
Yeah.
2, also understand. 3 in a row. And 3 becomes 4. And typically when they're there on a regular basis.
And that's actually my biggest
Red flag?
No, one of my kryptonites, because I really have to, especially if you're out of town or like that's a kryptonite that I really just have to fight hard of going to church, because it is very easy for me to shut myself off and just sit in my living room and watch TV, watch it on TV rather, not watch TV, but watch it on TV. So it is like, that's something I have to always be hyper vigilant about.
Which means you need to be aware and sensitive to your own shortcomings and temptations. So as you just acknowledged, for you, it's one of the first things for you to go is to stop going to church. For me, it's I stopped reading my Bible. That's the first thing for me to go. Like, worship is pretty easy for me. I go to church. That's easy for me. I'm an extrovert, and I love actually going in person. I love the corporate stuff, but the individual stuff. Yeah. So reading is one of the first things to go. Praying alone is one of the first things for me to go. So all that being said, know that about yourself, so that I love what you said, hypervigilant. Do it on purpose. And then last one, isolation. You feel disconnected from God. You feel disconnected from others and your soul. You're distracted and overwhelmed that your mind can't settle down long enough to enjoy the company of the Father.
Yeah.
Your mind is just moving in a bunch of different directions that the thought of just being present with God is just a foreign concept to you. So, quick recap. Number 1, irritability. 2, hypersensitivity. 3, restlessness. 4, workaholism. 5, emotional numbness. 6, out of order priorities. 7, lack of care for your body. 8, escapist behavior. 9, slippage of spiritual disciplines. And 10, isolation. And I think you said it like this. If you said yes to 3 or 4 of them, then you are living a hurried, sick life.
Yeah.
And you're not living in a
The first
posture of
time you
rest.
ever read that list, I think I was 10 out of 10.
Man.
Perfect.
So
I was so perfect in being messed up. I was a 10.
Fail.
I was a 10 out of 10 on that. And I do remember, because I was in a very unhealthy place in my life. So, oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. Definitely irritability. And I already said hypersensitivity. I had restlessness. Definitely struggled with workaholism. I was emotionally numb. I had my orders out of priority. I was going to say my orders out of priority. My priorities out of order. Definitely didn't care for my body. And because you're just so far deep into this, like, you just want to conserve as much energy as possible. So I wouldn't do anything other than, what I needed to do, like what was absolutely required of me. So, I'd come home, I'm eating out all the time, I'm so stressed. It's funny, I was watching a really old, not really old, it was probably a year and a half old video, and in there, there was this angle of me, and I just paused it, and I was like, oh God, I literally didn't see how unhealthy I was, because literally, this entire part of my face was just broken out. It was just, literally, like literally, sorry. I said literally a lot of time. It looked like constellation, like stars, you know? And you could tell just my eyes were just like sunken in. I was losing a lot of hair, so you could see like patchiness in my hairline. And that all came out of just having priorities all out of whack. You know, I was just constantly putting myself in a stressful environment and stressful situations, and I just accepted it. I said yes to it all. Like, I have no one to blame but me, right? Because I kept saying yes to it all. Like, I had every bit of a right to say no, but I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know any other version of me could show up than the one that I knew that year. So, man, yeah, like now, like even thinking, oh, that's a year I gained a ton of weight, and you know, like it was just, yeah, man, like I would never want to go back to that version of me.
Yeah.
Like, she was not it.
And
You know?
the purpose of addressing this list, guys, is it's not to shame you. Please know that.
Yeah.
It's to help you identify where are you, so that you can get out of it.
Yeah.
So if you, I mean, to your point, if let's just say you are a 10 out of 10. Now you know.
Yeah.
Like, that's a
I think
win.
that's the best thing that could happen, is that you're aware.
Yes.
Because once you're made
What's
aware,
the first thing that needs to happen?
yeah, what are you going to do about it?
Correct.
What are you going to do about it?
So like, yeah, I mean, it's so now this is the same moment. Like, this isn't to shame you or humiliate you at all. Please know
Yeah.
that. It's to bring awareness, though. And now that you know where you are, what's the next step? And here's a better way. So let's just say you are 10 out of 10. You may not be. Maybe it's only 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10. Look at it this way. Look at it as a bucket of slats, right? If there's slats and, you know, whatever the lowest one, you might have 10 low slats, okay? The next question you want to ask yourself then is, which one is the lowest slat? Out of the 10, which one is the absolute lowest? Because if I fix the other 9 slats, but my lowest is still at the bottom, no matter what I do, if I fill up that bucket, it's still going to, the water's still going to empty at the lowest slat. So ask yourself, out of the 10, if you are 10, then just address the lowest slat first and go all in on that. If it's irritability, go all in on your irritability and fix that. Focus on that. If it's your inability to empathize with people, focus on that.
Yeah.
And one of the best things to do too is ask people who are close to you. Like, ask them like, hey, you don't have to use the language that we use, a hurried, sick life. If you want to, of course, share it with them and you guys can talk about it together. But just ask them like, hey, do I seem rested to you? You know? And here's the rule. You're not allowed to get defensive. You're not allowed to push back. The only questions you can ask is, what do you mean by that? And can you give me an example? So like, listen, spouses, I promise you, your spouse will tell you exactly. They will tell you straight up, and they ain't gonna miss.
Unless you're hypersensitive and they know that and they're scared of you.
But fair point. There you go.
I was going to say, I think I'm a 1 out of 10 right now.
Okay.
Because I still struggle with isolation. Like, I do it unknowingly sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Because of where I am in life and my schedule, it's easy to fall into isolation without like realizing it. It's like, oh, you should get out.
Yeah.
You should go. You should say yes to that event.
Yeah.
Because if not, you will be in the confines of your apartment.
For me, it's number 9, slippage of spiritual disciplines.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't.
Which is
read the
essentially
past couple
leads
days.
to slippage for me.
Okay.
But like for me, like isolation it can happen easily without even realizing it.
Yeah.
That's why I want a hybrid position where if I don't want to see people, then I'm like, shoo.
A
I'll
little
be
bit of
home.
both.
Yeah.
No, that's good. So yeah, so just keep that in mind. Just kind of a couple more things, sweetheart. What are some practical things then? I mean, I know we talked about those 10 things per John Mark Comer. What are some practical things then that people can do to kind of help them get into a posture of rest? Just very simple.
Oh man, I'm trying to I'm trying to think back.
What are some things you do?
I was gonna say I turn off my phone, but that's a big bold lie. But that is something you can do. That is something I have done.
But there is something else you have been doing different with your phone. You may not have been turning it off, but what have you been doing?
I throw it to the side.
Yeah, Be specific in that. What does that mean?
Like I leave it where I don't have access to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
It's very easy for me to.
Just pick it up and grab it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't have an Apple Watch on, and I'm not gonna get alerted on what's happening.
Right, but even if you get alerted with your watch on, you're still less prone. It's just you might look at the notification.
Well, no,
You're
like I'm
more-
saying, I grab the phone and check my notifications. Like I'm not gonna be alerted. Like so, it's.
But it removes the trigger in the cue, but you're
Yeah.
saying to keep picking it up.
If you really want to shame yourself, go look at your screen time, and you're like, you know.
So let's stay here with the because I think this is actually something that a lot of people do struggle with their phone. Because I know myself, like you said, I just leave it in the other room.
Yeah.
I don't even take it with, because now what I'm doing is I'm just completely, this kind of goes to the Atomic Habit / Power of Habit books. It's that habit loop thing.
Yeah.
There's something is cueing you or triggering you into doing something. So if I just remove the cue and the trigger completely, then I can be more present.
Yeah.
So
And
I
for
just
me,
leave
part
it.
of it was, again, being a workaholic, I felt like I always had to be present and at the drop of a bucket that I had to be available, right? So I needed my phone next to me at all times. So it's breaking that for me when I, like, honestly, like, it's hard for me to leave my phone. And then when I realized, like, dude, you have an issue, you know, like, nothing should have your attention that much.
Yeah.
Right? Which is funny because my brother always makes fun of me saying, like, you defeat the purpose of having a phone because, like, you never answer your phone calls. And I'm like, well, should have texted, you know? But yeah, like, that is, like, a hard thing for me to do.
Yeah.
You know, I pick a show and I watch it. You know, I'm not going to feel guilty about watching a show on Netflix. But I do make sure I did what I need to, and it's not escapism.
Escapist behavior.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Escapism.
So going back to that, like having the balance in between that, something I've been doing is I kind of give myself an incentive. So
Yeah.
there have been times where, especially on my days off more so, I'm not allowed to binge anything unless I've spent time with the Lord. And the cool thing is what starts off as maybe it's not about the quantity as much as it is about the quality.
Yeah.
You know? But the funny thing is I'm now at that point in my life where I can spend hours with the Lord. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I'll take an hour walk, followed by reading again for another 30, 40 minutes, and I can worship for 30 minutes, sometimes also an hour.
Yeah.
So next thing I know, I've spent 2-3 hours with the Lord. And so now when I am binging, it's not an escape. It's actually just something I enjoy now.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, we did that yesterday.
Right. And
Like-
but my fullness, I guess where I'm going with it is me being filled has come from God and not a TV show.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or binging a couple movies. So that's another thing. Like maybe give yourself an incentive. Before you do XYZ, you have to do ABC. You know,
Yeah.
is another one.
And it's also, I think, equally important to know what your triggers are, because they're like, I literally had this conversation with Mark last week where I said there are certain shows I cannot watch anymore. Because as much as I am curious about what's going to happen to the character, it's not at the risk of making my soul super uncomfortable.
That's good.
You know, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, these are fake people. I mean, the actors are real, but
Right,
you know,
right.
these characters are fake. So oh well, I'm sure I'll find out
Right.
from like a spoiler somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, but you also have to know your triggers. So don't be like, oh, I spent 3 hours with the Lord, now I'm going to go watch a massacre movie. If that is a trigger to you, or if you notice like, man, my soul feels unsettled, shut it off.
That's good. That's a great filter, because there are times we feel it, but we ignore it.
Right.
So I love that you said that.
Because I did that, like, because the new season of one of my shows dropped, and so I watched episode 1, and I'm just like, so I was laying in bed and watching it, and I was like, like I just felt so uncomfortable, and it was nothing out of the ordinary. It was everything that's going on in the world that I'm surrounded by, right? But there was just something in me, and I was just like, man, I feel so uncomfortable. Like I almost felt sick, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
Right? Like I literally physically almost felt sick, and I was like, the heck, you know? So I ignored it. I went to episode 2, and like halfway through episode 2, and I'm like,
Felt you stronger.
I was like, I can't do this.
So this
I
leads to
said,
another-
I think this is it's a show.
This leads to another point then. The Lord is going to speak to you guys, and you have to listen.
Right.
Excuse me. You don't have to, actually. You really don't. Because the Lord will let you choose.
Right.
But part of how we receive rest is listening to that still small voice.
Yeah.
and he moves through. I love that what you said. Like, pay attention what unsettles your soul, and know that what unsettles your soul might be different for someone else.
Yeah.
It may not unsettle someone else. That's fine. We're all on different journeys, Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians, but I love what you said, having awareness of what hits my soul. I remember watching the preview for a show that I really wanted to watch, and I literally felt the Holy Spirit say, you don't need to watch that. I'm like,
Yes.
all
sir.
right.
Yeah.
That's it. And that was it.
Yeah.
I haven't even gone and checked it out. I same thing. I'm curious. I'm like, I ain't that curious though, that when I felt the Holy Spirit say it just like that.
Yeah.
You need to watch that. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's it. Done deal. Because the last thing I need is, when we talk about rest, it's not just physical. Yes, that's a huge part of it. But I don't need my soul to be unrested either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need my spirit person, my inner person. I don't need my mind to be unrested.
Yeah.
Other things, these are very, very practical things. I actually learned this from a therapist. The 5 things he asks people anytime you feel out of order or unbalanced or unrested is, I'll say it in the words and ask him the question. It's sleep, eat, exercise, screen time, and water. So how much sleep are you getting? Are you getting your 7 to 9 hours of sleep?
I need 8 hours or else I'm
with you.
Yeah.
You and me both. Have you eaten? But not just have you eaten. Are you eating like the right
good,
things?
nutritious?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Are you getting things in your system that need to be there? Have you exercised? By the way, we're not talking like, it doesn't have to be Shaun T Insanity or Tony Horton's P90X. Like, when I say have you exercised, and this is the therapist too, is like, have you just taken a walk?
Yeah.
Like your body actually needs 15 to 20 minutes of sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
So it can just be a walk. Like studies have actually proven and shown you can physically actually work out stress, work out anxiousness, work out worries and doubts. And so just maybe it's an exercise or taking a walk. Number 4, how much screen time have you had? And I'm not just talking about binging now. This is also on the job. If you have a desk job or something, you might need to just literally step away from your computer and just take a walk down the hall, go down a couple floors, again, out in your parking lot, whatever. Take 5, 10, 15-minute break or whatever. How much screen time have you had? And the last one, are you drinking water? Which is crazy because I don't remember the stat, but it was like a crazy high double-digit number of people that go to ER. A good percentage of them are dehydrated.
Yeah.
They just give them IV. It's like, for the love of God, drink water.
Yeah.
So all that being said, when you feel a little off, that's become my new checklist too.
Yeah.
That's ever since I learned this, I keep that in the back of my mind. I'm like, have I eaten today? And there are times I have, and I can't tell you how many times when I'm missing 1 or 2 of these 5, after I do it, I feel exponentially better.
Yeah.
I ain't work out yet, or I ain't go for a walk yet. I haven't been drinking water. So, popping a Gatorade or a liquid IV or something like that. But as practical and simple as that is, that's been my go-to on a daily basis. And so you had me do that last week. Last week I was doing a recording with a guest host with Andy, and I had time. And I was like, man, babe, I'm so tired, but I gotta do this recording. You're like, that's not for another 2 hours, baby. Like, take a nap. I took a 45-minute nap.
Yeah.
And it was a game changer. Like, I was still, tired, but nowhere near where I was before, But you suggested that for me, and it was great. I'm not an anti-nap guy. I just figured, I'm like, well, I got 2 hours, and I thought I just had to be up, ready for it. And you just reminded me, like, take a nap. And it was a game changer.
Yeah.
So those are some other things. But again, it's not limited to this. But yeah.
Yeah, naps are not only a child's best friend, but an adult's best friend.
100%.
Yeah.
All the way. But
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think I'm good. I think we covered it all. We've saved the world.
Come on.
We
Everybody, get your rest on with some solitude. And with all that being said, we're actually going to rest for a couple more weeks and take a break.
We are.
So we will see you guys in the fall probably. And but all for good reasons though. Like
we're fine. We just have a rhythm of, in the past, having rested a couple of weeks throughout the summer, and just because we're not doing something that doesn't take that much energy out of us, because this is something we obviously enjoy doing, does not mean we're not going to follow that rhythm of rest. And it's also going to give us time to just kind of dream again. We are actually going to we're doing a trip to Nepal in the fall. So right after Thanksgiving, our plan is to head to Nepal and work in Kathmandu in the Himalayan Mountains with women who are prone to sex trafficking. So super excited about that. So I think we just want to get ready for that.
Yeah.
And hey, if you guys want to support that trip, let us know. There is opportunity for that.
Yeah, well, I say, on a serious note, we would love if you guys would prayerfully consider supporting us financially. Of course, prayer is wonderful, but we'll leave a link below in the description of this episode if that's something you guys feel moved to do. And there'll be a link for Juby and a link for myself because they're two separate ones. The goal is $3,600 each. It's not a inexpensive trip. But again, just only do it if the Lord's telling you to.
Yeah. I think what we're going to come back with and what we'll do there is going to be more than like worth the cost.
Yeah. I'm looking forward. This is our first time doing this together too. You've done a trip on your own. I've done one on my own, but this will be the first that we're doing it together and a true overseas one. Yeah. So I'm ecstatic for it.
And y'all pray for him. He's only one of 2 guys on the trip. Everyone else is female.
Man, ain't bother me. Talking to a dancer. Top hip hop. Don't get any ideas, fam.
I'm also laughing really hard the fact that you have a Gateway NFW socks on. Like, do you know it's branded at the bottom?
Come on, Gateway son, right here. Look at it, representing. I got you, North Fort Worth, the NoFo, not to be misconstrued with something else. On that note, we love you guys. We are so thankful that you guys have joined us again. We'll get you guys in a few weeks, probably late August, early September.
Yep.
We'll see, maybe Labor Day weekend time frame, something like that.
Ooh.
But in the meantime, seriously, like, reach out to us. If you guys got questions, topics and everything, we have a lot of ideas. Don't you worry. We got plenty of ideas. But we love you guys. Thank you so much for rocking with us. But have a great rest of your day. And with all that being said, love, grace, and
chicken grease.
Peace out.